Hey, good evening and welcome to the Van Jones Show. Look, this week in Washington, D.C. was just another one for the books, all right? We got new questions about potential unethical conversations between President Trump and a foreign leader, new deep state conspiracy theories going around. The president's closest allies now are stonewalling Congress, and Rudy Giuliani is contradicting himself on national television. In other words, par for the course, same as always, pretty much more of the same. But luckily tonight, we're gonna give you a break. We got a breath of fresh air for you. The crowd surfing, line dancing, 2020 hopeful who wants to give every adult American $1,000 a month, Andrew Yang is here. Andrew Yang. Gang, gang. Oh, I'm so happy. Also, we're gonna hear from a new generation of leaders that are working to protect the planet. They're mobilizing millions of people all around the world. I'm very excited to have the climate youth leadership here. Also, you have probably seen this video, all right? Look at that, so cute. And tonight, we're gonna meet the tiny stars of that viral sensation that's given me so much hope, so many people so much hope. These little babies, the best friends, Finnegan and Maxwell, are here tonight. I can't wait to meet them. Oh, it's gonna be a great show. So, let's just get started, get right into it. Please welcome to the Van Jones Show, 2020 presidential candidate, Andrew Yang, in the house. Yeah. I love it, I love it. My man, good to see you, sir. Beautiful, beautiful.
Hello, everyone. Gang, gang.
Oh, man, grab a seat. Listen, man, it is an honor to see you. You have completely shaken up the conversation, bringing in all these new thoughts and ideas. Before we get to that, back to the nonsense for 1 second. This whistleblower controversy, how concerned are you? Lots of allegations, lots of questions. How concerned are you that the White House might be trying to stifle this whistleblower who's trying to tell us something about something that's happening in the administration?
No, I'm deeply concerned, but unfortunately, we've seen this before. And the 1,000th verification that Donald Trump is Donald Trump, in some ways, it's disappointing but not surprising. My job is to beat him at the ballot box in 2020 if he's still there.
Yeah. Well, listen, let's talk about that. How are you going to do it? You have such an unorthodox message, unorthodox style. How are you going to beat Donald Trump?
Well, I like math. And I'm one of 2 Democratic candidates in the field that 10% or more of Donald Trump voters said that they would support. So if I'm the Democratic nominee, we win the whole thing.
You and I spend time on the West Coast. The West Coast, a lot of stuff that you're talking about for the future is already here. The demographic changes are already there, but also the split between the rich and poor.
Completely.
That's kind of given you a little bit of a leg up in your policy proposals, universal basic income. Tell us a little bit more. It's such a big conversation in California, not a big conversation anyplace else. What is UBI and why will it work?
Well, if you've heard anything about me and my campaign, you've heard that I want to give every American adult $1,000 a month. And this seems far out or futuristic to some, but this is a deeply American idea.
Yeah, it sounds like a gimmick almost.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. But then Thomas Paine was for it, Martin Luther King championed it, and it is what he was fighting for when he was assassinated in 1968. And one state has had a dividend in place for almost 40 years, Alaska, which gives $1,000 to $2,000 in oil money to every Alaskan every single year. So what I'm saying to the American people is that what oil is to Alaska, technology is to the entire country. Because we're in an era where technology is going to do more and more of the work, and you have trillion-dollar tech companies like Amazon literally paying 0 in taxes, and that's not going to work for the American people.
Yeah. So look, I mean, part of the thing is I think people want, though, to work. And I think there's a fear that if you're just going to be passing out checks to people, that they're going to get the check, but they're still going to be alone, they're going to be isolated. What do you say to people who say people don't just want a check, they want a job?
I'm going to ask the people here in the studio audience, how many of you think that if you were getting $1,000 a month, you would work harder? Oh, look at that. Virtually everyone. How many of you think that you would just hit the sofa and never get up?
Well, they're like, we're on television, we can't raise our hand.
Well, but if everyone watching this reflects on that, no one's going to quit their job on $1,000 a month unless they're in a truly abusive or exploitative situation, at which point they probably should be able to leave.
Right.
So this is going to free us up to do more of the work that we want to do naturally. It's also going to recognize the kind of work that my wife does at home with our 2 boys every single day. One of our boys is autistic, and raising kids is the hardest, most challenging work there is, yet right now we value it at 0.
What about people who say that it's going to just, create a bunch of inflation? In other words, if everybody gets $1,000, isn't $1,000 like the new zero? Won't the inflation eat all that up?
A couple of data points on this. You all remember voting for the $4 trillion bailout of Wall Street during the crisis?
No.
No, none of us voted for it. Yet that's what happened, and there was not rampant inflation. If you look at our costs right now, inflation centered in three areas: housing, education, and healthcare. If we had $1,000 a month, most of our consumer products would stay the same price, and I have separate plans to try and curb any price rises in those three areas, which unfortunately are three areas that make us miserable: housing, education, and healthcare. But those areas are not getting more expensive because we have money in our pockets. Unfortunately, it's the opposite.
So how does your policy deal with that?
Well, I have separate plans to try and curb inflation in those three areas. But I'm happy to say this $12,000 a year that we'd all be entitled to, what would we spend it on in real life? Daycare, Little League sign-ups, car repairs you've been putting off, the occasional night out. The money would just flow right back into our communities. We can create a trickle-up economy. And this would actually work, unlike the garbage that, the trickle-down theory was over this last number of years.
Yeah. Is this in your mind, like a panacea for everything? There are special problems that special groups have. Don't you need special solutions for, say, African Americans, for women, for other groups? Some people say Yang wants to do this instead of having a racial justice initiative or gender justice initiative. How do you respond to that?
I agree that we need much more than this foundation or floor. I see the freedom dividend as a base to build on. It's like the floor, $1,000 a month, where we can meet our basic needs, but that doesn't solve the problems. Then you have to start working on racial inequities, on gender inequities. We need to build a house on top of the foundation.
What's an Andrew Yang-style racial justice initiative on top of the freedom dividend?
On the criminal justice side, first I want to legalize marijuana nationwide. I want to go a step further. I want to pardon everyone who's in jail for a nonviolent marijuana-related offense on April 20th, 2021.
You got your first round of applause. We might have some nonviolent drug offenders in here.
I want to get rid of private prisons. It makes no sense to have prisons that have a profit motivation on the other side. I want to get rid of a punitive cash bail system that essentially throws people in jail for being poor. Yeah. I mean, there are a bunch of structural problems that we can fix, and I'm happy to say most Americans on both sides of the aisle now agree that our current criminal justice system is not working.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you have such a strong online presence, I mean, Yang Gang is all over the internet, all over, I mean, it's just nuts. So I decided I wanted to go online and get some questions. And so let's hear from somebody who actually is not here in the audience, but wants to get their question answered by you.
Hi, Andrew. I'm over 50. I know I don't look like it. And I'm not worried about a robot taking over my job. My question for you is, why should I and my fellow baby boomers support you?
Well, the problems that I'm trying to address are the problems that got Donald Trump elected, that we automated away millions of manufacturing jobs, and that those changes are now going to affect other types of workers. It seems like he's not worried about that.
Right.
But what he may be worried about is that boomers are facing a retirement crisis, where half of aging Americans will never actually be able to retire. And so we need to put in place, again, this foundation that will help Americans retire with dignity. Because we do not want to be a country where, frankly, people are working in convenience stores till the day they die in order to make ends meet. We're better than this. In my mind, Americans that have worked for decades have earned the right to retire with dignity.
How does it feel for you to be, I mean, you were not a well-known person a couple years ago.
No, I don't know who Andrew Yang was.
Yeah.
Quite recently, I know.
Yeah. How does it feel?
It feels really great because we're waking up to the fact that there's nothing stopping a majority of citizens of a democracy from improving our own lives. Actually, that's the only way it's going to happen. If you go to yang2020.com, you'll see I have over 150 policies trying to solve all sorts of problems. And a lot of them we can get done very, very quickly after I'm president.
Well, do you think people are taking you seriously enough? I mean, part of the thing is that you're such an unlikely candidate that people, they're not shooting at you. Even Donald Trump doesn't have a bad name for you yet. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, Donald Trump hasn't messed with me online because he knows I'm actually better at the internet than he is. And though I started out an unlikely candidate, I'm now 6th in national polls. I've made every debate. Yeah. And we are one of only a couple of campaigns that has been consistently growing. Democrats around the country are trying to figure out who's the best candidate to take on Donald Trump.
Right.
When they realize that I'm peeling off hundreds of thousands of disaffected Trump voters, as well as independents and libertarians, in addition to Democrats, they're going to realize that I am the best candidate to beat Donald Trump in 2020.
Yeah. You know, help me understand a couple of things here. First of all, on the one hand, you are growing, but online, a lot of your people feel like there's a conspiracy to keep you invisible. I deleted one tweet with your name in it, and I got just killed. Like, why are you trying to erase it? So,
Let Yang speak.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's a reluctance on the part of the media to give you your opportunities? Do you feel like you're being made invisible in any way?
Big picture, the media's treatment of us, I think, has been colored by the fact that they just didn't know what to do with me. And I'm not going to knock them for that. But now it's indisputable that I'm one of the top 6 or 7 candidates in the race, that we're going to be here the whole time, that we have the resources to play all the way through 2020. But I'm happy to say now the media has woken up to that fact.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, though. We already have a business dude in the White House.
Please don't compare me to that guy.
I'm just saying. Somebody's got to say it to you, man. You're a business dude. You got no political experience, and you're coming in making big promises. Why shouldn't we be terrified? I got PTSD from the last one.
So Donald Trump gives entrepreneurs a bad name. And real entrepreneurs like myself regard him as a marketing charlatan and a fraud and not a real builder. He certainly doesn't represent all of us. And also, I'm the last person who would say I'm going to run government like a business, because that's nonsense. They're very different things. And running the government is much more similar to what I did running a national nonprofit that I'd founded, where you have to have a vision and then activate energy and excitement around that vision and try and build consensus. That's much, much more analogous to what I will do as president.
Oh, that's great. Listen, we got a lot more to talk about with you when we get back. First of all, we could be talking to the first Asian American president ever. Now, what would that mean for the country? Also, he actually wants to sit down and talk to the fired Saturday Night Live comedian who made disparaging remarks about him and Asian people. Why does he want to do that? All that and more when we get back.